Welcome to video 3, Using Correlation for Entries and Exits by Urban Forex. Okay, so in this video I'm going to be talking more about how do you use correlation for your entries and exits. You already know that correlation can come in handy to identify a certain type of situation in the market that just gives you clues that this is a good one, this is not a good one, something's happening in the market with one of these pairs. It gives you those little hints and clues, right? But in this one, I'm going to show you how correlation in a different light can actually help you with your entries and exits for those same various reasons. So today, I took a trade today based on the Swiss franc group, right? And based on all the Swiss franc groups, I knew Swiss franc was strong. So this whole group that you're seeing in front of you is all Swiss franc, right? Aussie Swiss, New Zealand Swiss, Euro Swiss, Pound Swiss, CAD Swiss, and USD Swiss. Now Swiss franc is fundamentally strong as well, so I want to be selling Swiss franc. Now I cannot sell pound Swiss franc because pound was getting stronger, and I was seeing it across their correlation group as well. And you will see the subtle differences that pound has versus everybody else. So my main pairs of focus was Aussie Swiss, New Zealand Swiss, and CAD Swiss. These were my focus pairs. I'm going to put my smiley faces on them. Okay, so I like these three pairs for selling: Aussie, New Zealand, and CAD Swiss. Unfortunately, throughout the day, New Zealand news came out, and New Zealand news was actually good news. Now, if I want to sell this and New Zealand news is good news, fundamentally speaking, that means this chart will want to go up while for New Zealand, while New Zealand would want this to go down. That's going to cause conflict of interest, making the chart pretty much go sideways. So I didn't want to deal with that. So immediately, without even looking at correlation or anything, I said I don't want to unfortunately deal with this. This one is off the group for me. I like CAD Swiss franc because in the previous day we had some oil news and the oil was bad news, so I knew CAD was supposed to be weak. I just needed that inclination, and today when I saw all the CADs actually get weaker, breaking through Asia and everything like that, I was like, great. That's great news. I can now use it with the fundamentals. Same thing with Aussies. Aussies were getting weak, and I can now use it with fundamentals. So I'm preparing for my sales, and now I've reached a point of how do I enter? How do I enter? How do I time this to the best of my abilities so I get a decent price? So I'm using the knowledge from your previous video that you've just watched about the digestion phase. So I'm watching the first meal come in really, really hard, and I'm like, okay, that's a big meal there. CAD Swiss franc, the meal is not so aggressive. Maybe I want to be looking to use CAD Swiss franc. Okay, I'm leaning more towards that. My smile is getting a little bit bigger here. I'm like, yes, that's the one, baby. Okay, and then later on, after some digestion, it takes another big meal on both of them. It's like, okay, interesting. So now we have to deal with that. Okay, we got to deal by getting through that. In this process, we had some digestion, and then it goes sideways. Okay, so it hasn't done a lot of digestion. It's done some of it, and it's going sideways. Once we get further digestion, which is lower down to here, and then it goes sideways, we know that it's pretty much getting ready to go. But in the sake of CAD Swiss franc, he came down, and during that process, while he was digesting sideways here, CAD Swiss franc digested quite a bit. This is making me more and more interested in CAD Swiss franc, making me feel like this might even be the leader of the whole group. When it leaves, he's going to lead the way, and then Aussie Swiss franc will come right behind it. So initially, I've planned that once this further digestion starts giving me some kind of a range or sideways momentum from the larger players, I'm going to be in. Okay, I'm going to be in. So as this thing digested, I was watching the prices go up, and they're like, okay, well, after the range, he went up a little bit. That's okay. But as we're getting closer and closer and he's turning back around, I'm watching very carefully together with this because he went up very aggressively. I'm like, uh-oh, I hope his meal consumption is not going to cause me any issues. Okay, notice I'm not just blindly entering the CAD Swiss franc. I am monitoring my Aussie Swiss franc closely as a side-by-side sister pair. I'm like, come on, Aussie Swiss franc, roll over as well, so my trade is clear. I want to know all the Swiss francs are gearing to go. At that same time, Euro Swiss franc was going also higher, just like Aussie Swiss franc was. Notice my mouse on Aussie Swiss franc on the top left. This is the same area on Euro Swiss franc on the top right. Yeah? So, and this same area you will see on USD Swiss franc. Notice how USD Swiss franc is almost making a higher high. You see this earlier spot? I'm going to draw a circle here. Okay, I'm going to draw that same circle on Euro Swiss franc. I'm going to draw that same circle on Aussie Swiss franc. I'm going to draw that same circle on CAD Swiss franc. Notice how when it was going up for that last move, how deep did CAD Swiss franc go up compared to that circle? 50%? Look at Euro Swiss franc on the top right. That looks like he went up 80%. Look at Aussie Swiss franc on the top left. Looks like 70%. And now finally look at USD Swiss franc on the bottom right. Almost looks like 110%, 105%. You see why USD Swiss franc was not my go-to choice today at all? Okay, fundamentally, I didn't have any backing with it. Through session breaks also, I didn't have any backing with it. And then correlation was pointing out to me saying, good choice not choosing USD Swiss franc. It's a horrible player and it's very slow and nasty. Okay? So we didn't want to pick that one. So we are mainly focused, my main focus was on Aussie Swiss and CAD Swiss. As we go further into it, as the rollover started to happen right around here, okay, once you start rolling back into the range, now notice how I was saying on Aussie Swiss. Okay, let me delete this so you can see it clearly. He went up initially for a big meal. He came down for an initial digestion. Okay, and he went sideways. I needed a further digestion and then a sideways before I can get in. But on CAD Swiss, we didn't have that situation. Look at it very carefully. Meal, initial digestion, and he held. Further digestion, went through it completely, came back up, and he started holding. I already had whatever I needed to look at on CAD Swiss franc telling me this actually might be one that's going to be ready sooner. Okay? But I wanted to make sure it's going to be ready, so I watched it together with Aussie Swiss franc. Like, okay, you roll over as well, otherwise I'm not doing this. I need to know that the group is going. Okay? So as he started to roll over, without waiting for a price much lower and sideways, I said, as he rolls over, that's good enough for me. Because when he rolled over on CAD Swiss franc, he got back into the range, and that to me was get ready to sell. Okay? Now notice when the sells happened right around here, I'm going to draw a circle on my lowest point on my chart on the left hand side here on CAD Swiss. That same spot, I'm going to draw it on Aussie Swiss. Now tell me when the market started to go, CAD Swiss good choice or not? Yeah, right? CAD Swiss was able to make a lower low, while Aussie Swiss barely even reached the low, the same low. Okay? Correlation gives you that added edge you need to get in and out of trades. So far we've talked about how do you get into a trade, but similarly, I watch it closely for, if you remember from the end of your MPA 2.0, I also gave you some lessons about exits, right? How the range is your friend for exits. I do the same thing for my exits. I want to monitor where my exits might come, and I watch it as a group as well. Just like I watch for my entries, I want to watch once I start getting a range buildup. I want to make sure it's not just on one single pair, but it's across the board. If the range buildup is across the board, okay, here I didn't have it. Now notice on Euro Swiss franc, you can maybe classify that as a range or maybe not classify that as a range. But if I was just looking at Euro Swiss franc, I'd be waiting for the range and that whole thing would pull back on me and I'd have a much lower profit. But if I looked at it as a group, I'd be like, whoa, 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 there's a range there on Aussie Swiss. There's a range there on CAD Swiss. Let's take a look at USD Swiss at that same time. USD Swiss, there's a range there. There's ranges across the board showing up. I have to exit. Okay? At least it's an area to make a decision, to lighten up, to remove some money, to move stops to zero, and then you can, based on your research, you can see what more is there to do on this. Okay? So the whole goal is not to go into why did we do this trade? How did I do this trade? The whole goal is to understand how correlation helped me on this trade. Okay, nothing else. I don't want you to focus on, well, what was the fundamentals of this? What was the breaches of this? I want you to fully focus on how we reached this point using nothing but correlation. Okay, really focus in on the lessons you're doing for the week and try to master them without getting too involved and dragged into, well, how do I make money right now? Well, how do I make money right now? Okay, obviously you've gone beyond that point because you're here in the iconic. That means you're no longer a rookie like you were in the MPA 2.0. You're smarter, you're more patient, and you're looking to make the bigger amount now. So to do that requires a lot of patience, right? We're going to go through it slowly, piece by piece, and you have to master each piece to make sure you can do all of this stuff very well. Okay, so for entries, correlation can come very in handy to make sure once the group goes, I will go also. Okay, that's one of my go-to mantras. I need the group to come with me. The second thing is for exits, I don't want to see a range just on one pair. I want to see it across the board. And if it's happening across the board but not on my pair that I'm in, I will still exit. Okay, or I will still take action at that spot. Either lighten up, remove some money, or move stops to zero, or even add size, depending on the research. But it's an action area. A range means do something. Okay? All right. Hope this was very useful for you. Please practice this as much as you can throughout the week, and even try to see if you can see this in front of your eyes unfold. Okay, you will need a little bit of screen time for this. So as you see this examples here, you're watching me do it, and it will always, one thing I have to remind you guys, everything will always feel very simple when I do it. Okay, but the main goal is not can Naveen do it. You know I know how to do it. I need to know that you know how to do it. Okay, so it's not a circus where you're watching me perform. I want you to perform as well. Okay, so I need you to now use this knowledge for the upcoming week until your next lesson releases. Try to put in some practice, some screen time if you can, as much as you can, to watch them all piece by piece and see how do they unfold and how do they move together. Which ones take the leads? Which one goes slower? Why is it going slower? Try to think of these things. And it's going to make you a better trader like 100 times. Just by reaching up to this lesson, if you just practice what I've told you so far, you are already on your way to being a much more successful trader. Okay? And then we're going to layer on pieces after this. But here's to the start of your foundation. It is very, very important, this correlation. So I'm gonna burst some of you guys' bubble a little bit. If you feel you're gonna be remote and you're going to be a trader on the go who's going to just trade from his cell phone, you can't. You can't. You need to understand the full story, and to understand the full story, correlation is there. Okay, so trading on the go, take your laptop with you to make sure you can understand the full story. But trading from a cell phone, you're basically closing one eye. Okay, and you don't want to do that. In fact, you want to be opening up your third eye to trade, right? So correlation will do that for you. All right, I made this video a little bit longer than it should be, but it's very powerful. Be sure to watch it as many times as you need to, but make sure you master this. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.